If you guys had this, why exactly did we need to get the transport capsule to Mitsu on Zanzibar? Asks Kaz, gesturing vaguely around at the shuttle we're currently aboard, seeming to have only just thought of this question, despite this not being the first time she's ridden in it. I can answer that, offers Zon. At the time, the Bright Plumers were, technically, all persons of interest in an ongoing piracy investigation. We couldn't allow them use of an interstellar-capable ship. It wasn't as if any of us thought that you were pirates. Even the pirates very quickly gave up on trying to claim that you guys had framed them. But rules are rules, and we couldn't give you access to an FTL-capable ship, in case you decided to... Victor, what was that English phrase you told me the other day? Victor smiles. Do a runner? Zon nods and snaps her fingers. That was it! In case you'd done a runner. At this point, we are held by local aerospace control. It may even be the same man who I spoke to the evening we arrived, though I can't be sure from just his voice. Craft, the Swiftclaw, please be advised. You are entering restricted airspace. Transmit the proper landing clearance codes or you will be fired upon, he says casually. Twiller, I assume I can count on you to take care of that? I ask, a little nervous at the prospect of dying in a fiery anti-air barrage. Nah, thought it'd be fun to let you guys get shot down. I'd be fine, smirks Twiller's voice from the speakers. Codes received. Swiftclaw, you are clear to land. Welcome to Hale Ahaulelo, says the controller, with an audible smile. I look out of the window as we approach. The main government council meeting hall of this planet juts from the lower slopes of a mountain, capped by ice and with a permanent river of molten rock flowing down its side. I'm told, on Earth, that mountain would be too tall to even exist. Its own weight would cause the crust beneath it to sink into the mantle. Where the mountain meets the sea is a city that, outside of Terran space, would be considered a megalopolis. Twiller lands our shuttle at the end of a long terrace, 100 meters or so, above the dusty, stony soil of the slope below. The ramp opens and a booming voice announces over speakers, Ladies, gentlemen, and all other configurations of being, the guests of honor, please welcome the crew of the Bright Plume. A cheer erupts from a gathered crowd, held at bay by velvet ropes that mark off a red carpet, and look thoroughly inadequate to the task of telling a Death Warder where they are, and are not allowed to stand. The carpet is lined by soldiers in ceremonial-looking suits of armor, and armed with plasma spears. The soldiers certainly look a better match to the task than the velvet rope. There's celebratory music being played from somewhere. Taking their spears in their left hands, the soldiers ball their right hands into fists and bring them to their chests, the backs of their thumbs against their hearts in a Terran salute. On their right shoulders is the emblem of the United Terran Coalition, a quarter circle with 2 quarters green and 2 blue. On their left shoulders, the Neonesian emblem, an ocean blue and teal spiral. As we near each soldier, they thrust their spear into the air at a 45-degree angle, creating an arch for us to walk beneath. We approach the doors to the building, and they are opened for us by well-dressed, warmly smiling staff. We are ushered to a great auditorium with a portion of the seating standing empty near the front. Those who sit are each directed by our guides to a chair bearing their name. Cork and I are guided to a perch occupying the space of a chair, in the front row. They even went to the trouble of attaching our names to it, written out in required uniform script, as if anyone else here might think this perch was for them. Victor takes the seat to our left. A stocky man in distinguished-looking clothing, the sides and back of his head bare of hair, though it grows on the top, long enough to be tied into a bun, steps to the podium at the front of the stage. In his one bionic and one natural hand, he carries a fine piece of folded cloth that looks as if it weighs several times more than I do. He clears his throat, and his amplified voice echoes through the enormous room. Haltingly and nervously he starts, Good evening, all. For those of you who do not know me, I am Vasa Bluefin Tuilagi, and I am, as of recently, the representative for the Hoepahefu constituency, which includes Mokopua. Unfortunately, public speaking has never been a forte of mine, and I deeply regret that I cannot adequately honor the men and women before me with my words, the way they deserve. He takes a moment to collect himself before continuing. Their actions, when we called upon them, saved thousands of lives. It's impossible for me to conceive of the number of smiles hello, waves goodbye, and kisses goodnight that will happen
over the years to come, which would not have been possible without these people, right here.
His voice cracks as he says,
23,372. Every one of them someone's son or daughter, someone's mother or father, brother, sister or friend. Every one of them a life that now gets to be lived because of these people.
He pauses for a moment, scanning across the room.
I know that nothing I can say or do will convey the gratitude that these heroes and heroines deserve, the debt that the people of Neonesia owe, but, as but a token, I am proud to be able to present them with the sailcloth of Hano Hano, in recognition of their gallantry. Captain Taqual, 27th daughter of High Spire Peak, and Victor Carlos Taylor, would both of you please step on stage to accept this accolade on behalf of your ship and its crew?
I hop down from my place on the perch beside Quark, cradling Taqual in his wings, and begin walking up to the stage. Victor rises from his seat and walks beside me. We climb the stage and the host picks up the cloth, turning to face us. Holding it with two arms, he speaks.
With this cloth, Neonesia honors you. May the wind ever blow behind it. May the stars ever glitter above it. May the waves ever calm before it. And may the fish ever swim, plentiful, beneath it.
The man extends the cloth, wisely giving it to Victor rather than me, and the room erupts in thunderous applause. Later. I stand on the wall at the edge of the terrace garden adjoined to the building where the honour ceremony just took place. Behind me is a thrumming party. In front of me is a spectacular view of an enormous city surrounded by blue forests. Beside me is Victor.
Would you mind if I joined you?
Comes a recognisable voice. I turn and see the man who presented us with the honour. Victor smiles and shrugs before extending his right hand to the man's bionic for a handshake. No objection from me. Cap and I was just admiring the brewery. The man bares his teeth in a hearty laugh.
Brewery? I'll have to add that to my lexicon. Here, I've just been calling it vegetation all these years, like some kind of fool.
Victor grins back. Glad to. Oh shit. Truth? Truth, step away from the snack bar till I've told you what'll kill you to eat. Sorry, excuse me, you two. And with that, he disappears. Truilagi gives an amused expression as he watches Victor go, before gesturing after him and asking,
Is he aware that the snack bar is staffed by attendants whose only job is making sure no one eats anything that will poison them?
I chitter. I'm sure. Even if he were, he'd still want to make sure. The man takes the safety of others very seriously. Seems to be a theme with you, Terrence. Fierce about the safety of others. Blatant disregard for your own.
You think we're that bad?
He asks with amusement. In answer, I give a wary cock of my brow tuft, gesturing behind him, using my primary flight feathers to point up the slope, and ask, Mr. Tuolagi, what's that? He looks behind me.
Ki-ai-lili? The volcano?
I nod. And what is that running down the volcano side? He smiles, seeming to realize where I'm going.
That would be Aliau, a river of lava.
I gesture down to the coast. And that?
That's the city of Kahakainani, capital of both the island of Kahakainani and the planet Neonesia.
Indeed, indeed. And how many people live in Kahakainani? I smirk.
Around 50 million, I believe.
15 million people who've chosen to live in a city at the base of a permanently erupting volcano.
Point taken, but in our defense, this has got to be the best monitored volcano in the galaxy. Aliau also hasn't significantly changed course in the entire 300 years that this planet has been settled.
Excuses, excuses, I tease. He smiles and, after a few moments, indicates my position on the wall.
Speaking of safety, you realize if a Terran were standing where you're standing, I'd be telling him how much they had to live for right now.
I cock a brow tuft and answer, yes. Well, the difference is that a drop of this hide would kill a Terran, whereas getting stepped on by a drunken, reveling Terran would kill me.
Good point,
he says, with a corresponding gesture of his bionic index finger. I, take it you served? I say, indicating his replaced appendage.
Oh, yes,
he says, holding it up, pulling down his sleeve to show me how it attaches to his wrist, and then performing a 720-degree swivel that would definitely not be possible with a natural hand.
Nope. I did serve, but that's not where I got this. I lost it as a child. That was the time before I could just spend a few days in the tube and have it grown back like an axolotl. Or Deadpool. It actually would have exempted me from service if I'd wanted it to. I went to the recruitment office and had to beg them to let me show I could do anything a person with a natural hand could do, and more. I'm not entirely convinced the recruiter didn't just agree to get me out of his office.
I laugh. I've never heard anything more Terran. He smiles, and there is a brief lull in the conversation. I break the silence by observing, for someone who claims not to have a talent for public speaking, you certainly gave an eloquent and moving speech earlier. He gives a mirthful exhale.
I'm just glad I managed to get through it without bursting into tears.
I'm guessing you don't mean from stage fright?
You're guessing correctly. Of those countless smiles, waves, and kisses I mentioned, I hope to enjoy many myself. My wife and son were on that island. I owe their lives to you and your crew. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart.
I don't know what to say.
He shrugs. You don't need to say anything.
Another long pause. Eventually, a thought occurs to me. Mr. Trilagi?
Yes?
Why did you settle on politics? If you think yourself to be bad at public speaking, how are you elected if you are? I query. He chuckles and answers.
I didn't, and I wasn't. I don't blame you for not following the local news. My predecessor is sitting in a jail cell awaiting trial for fraud, embezzlement, and endangerment of public safety right now. When I said I was the representative as of recently, I meant less than a week ago.
What did they do? Your predecessor. Why are they facing these charges?
Well, he siphoned off funds, went for things like tsunami prediction systems, for example, and directed them to a personal account, then attempted to flee the system on a private yacht he'd bought with his embezzled money. When this fact came to light, I think he's going to get the book thrown at him. There will certainly be a sizable minority of the population advocating reinstatement of the death penalty, as there always is when a particularly emotionally charged crime like this is being tried. I highly doubt he'll ever be allowed to hold public office again, as if he'd ever find a constituency to vote for him. I'm just the highest level political clerk to whom no shit stuck. I'm only keeping the seat warm until a snap election is called. I'm sorry that it wasn't someone more prestigious who presented you with that sailcloth.
I smile a Terran smile, as much as one can with our lips, and answer, Mr. Tilagi, the heartfelt thanks of a man grateful not to have lost a family meant more to me than if that award had been presented by an emperor. Also, even if it's only temporarily, don't you hold just about the most esteemed position in Terran politics? In order to get any more prestigious, you'd have to go into diplomacy, right? The UTC is in rare company, galactically, for ruling exclusively by council. He beams before confirming.
You're right. When Terrans were hammering out for our unification, heads of state were one of the first things we agreed needed to go. Gone were the days where decisions needed to be more fast than considered, and gone were the days where politicians could be allowed the arrogance of thinking their people were their servants. There was even some talk of making manacles or collars a symbolic mark of office, to remind us of who served whom, ultimately ruled to be too much in poor taste. Political crimes like my predecessor committed are some of those that we Terrans look upon least charitably. I suppose I should enjoy this office while I hold it. I expect I'll be back at my old desk within the month.
I think for a moment before saying, Mr. Chilagi, if you want to remain as a representative, could I give you some advice? He chuckles.
Oh, already offering me campaign advice. So forward. Go on, then.
The way you speak, when you have a lot to say, is very halting. He nods and sighs.
I know, I should speak more fluently if I want.
Lean into it, I interrupt. He turns to me, a beaming expression on his face.
Lean into it? You mean I should just speak haltingly?
I mean that you should learn the art of the dramatic pause, I say, with a wry cock of my brow tuft. He bursts out laughing.
I can tell that someone's been to the quality equivalent of elocution lessons.
I neither confirm nor deny that supposition, but I am serious. The way you speak now, it's as if every pause is taking you a little bit by surprise, panicking you slightly. I think the easiest way for you to improve your public speaking is to relax, giving people the impression that you're letting your previous words sit, or carefully considering your next. Don't fear the pauses. Done right, they lend gravitas. You also did nothing to hurt your chances by being the highest level politician for your constituency who wasn't caught up in the corruption scandal. Though, if I were you, I would only lean into that if you're actually as humble and squeaky clean as you appear to be to me. Humility and honesty are traits you Terrans love, but in my experience, there's nothing that you hate more than insincerity.
He nods consideringly. I'd never thought of that. Thank you.
Ah, already trying the dramatic pauses, I see. He laughs.
I suppose so. I need some practice, if I want to run in the snap election, that is.
He sighs, looking out at the setting sun.
I can't believe I just got given political campaign advice by the woman who pulled a Dunkirk on my home island the other day. Oh, sorry. Do you know what Dunkirk is?
I narrow my eyes, thinking for a few moments. Then I recall. Yes, I do actually. The 26th century film version is my CSS's favourite film. He says it restores his faith in humanity. I do know it was based on a historical event. When I asked Victor why he needed his faith in humanity restored, he asked me if I needed him to remind him what the other side of that conflict fought for. What are you guys talking about? Asked Victor, freshly returned from policing the snack bar. Your favourite film, Victor, I smile. Hercules, 1997, he says instantly. I sigh. No, your other favourite film. He thinks a moment before saying, the Journey to the West series, 2311 to 2320. The martial arts is sublime. Never been surpassed, before or since. First ever major blockbuster to feature an uplift actor in a leading role, with Ho Ain Yang absolutely fucking killing it as Monkey. Now, your other favourite film. Another longer pause. Laputa, Castle in the Sky, 1986? The Zhu Chang Saga, 2113? No. The Evacuation, 2592, about Dunkirk. Oh my god, that's my favourite film, declares Victor with an almost enough enthusiasm to make one forget that he just named 4 other films as his favourites. He turns to Chilagi, a broad grin on his face. You see the making of documentary? The director is telling how one of the producers wanted to film it on the original location, and had to have it gently explained that the original location is 20 kilometers inland nowadays. Having hysterics. Definitely made the right choice with filming it on New Volada and Nova Britannia. I'm sorry to interrupts the smiling Emiko, not looking overdressed for the first time that I've seen, and flanked by Miss Hunter and with 3 other people I recognise, though we've never met. I thought introductions ought to happen now before everyone gets too merry. She gestures to a man wearing a short-sleeved shirt made of highly durable khaki-coloured cloth, a matching pair of shorts, a sturdy-looking pair of boots, and a wide-brimmed leather hat. At his hip hangs a sheath, which looks as if it usually contains around 30 centimetres of metal blade, which, I assume, he had to relinquish at the entrance. He steps forward and, offering his hand for me to take, speaks boisterously, in a dialect of Victor's language that my translator informs me is called New Australian. Bloody pleasure to meet you! Name's Steve Taipan Kelly, expert on toxins and animal handling. Seems like I'm going to be joining you on your tinny. Captain DeQual, I supply, as I take his hand and he allows me to dictate the pace of the handshake. That done, he turns to Victor and grins. How's it going, you pommy wanker? I'm mortified by the disrespectful way he just spoke to my friend and crewman, but Victor, confusingly, just has a broad smile spreading across his face. Ain't too bad. How about yourself, you Aussie twat? Kelly throws his head back in a roaring laugh for a few moments before saying, I think us two are going to be good mates. Would someone please explain what just happened? I ask, extremely confused. Shared cultural feature. Insults are affectionate in both Brit and Aussie cultures. Or can be, at least. Brave to do that as your introduction to someone, though, smiles Victor, without breaking eye contact with the man with whom he had just exchanged apparently affectionate barbs. I see you, quivering, hatchling, I say awkwardly. He turns to me and says, Cap, appreciate it. Unnecessary, with a reassuring nod and smile. I give a sigh of relief. Thank the 17. I can't think of a time when I have been less comfortable than that. Laughing at the exchange, a Terran woman steps forward, dressed in a long-sleeved, long-hemmed dress of light blue fabric with a matching cloth wrapped tightly around her head, resulting in her only visible skin being that of her face and hands, one of which she extends to me, saying, Yasmin, Goltung Soltani, linguist. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. It takes me a moment to realise that she just spoke in flawless Raquali. I chitter. Do I even want to know how many languages a Terran linguist speaks? She giggles. I'm not even sure I know that anymore. I stopped keeping track at some point during the war. So many languages to decipher, though I do need to point out that a linguist is not the same thing as a hyperpolyglot. I just happen to be both. She turns to Victor and, switching to English, says, It's a pleasure to meet you as well, Mr. Taylor. And likewise, answers Victor. She does not proffer her hand to him, nor he to her, though they do smile at each other, so I'm confident that this is not as a result of animosity. Finally, a woman approaches, walking on 4 cloven hooves at the end of 4 slender legs, an impressive set of antlers on her head, and with her eyes arranged slightly to the sides of her face, rather than the front, her pupils elongated horizontally. Princess Vasila of Nigurwig, she says serenely, bringing her 2 hands to her chest and then out, toward me, in what my translator tells me is her species gesture of greeting. I thank you most kindly for your agreement to convey me to Hrujil. The ODR were quite insistent that I only use transportation that they had approved. You're quite welcome, Princess. It only made sense to accept the commission, given that I was already engaged in another contract with the ODR, and it didn't require my ship to go anywhere we weren't already planning to, I say cordially. There are a few moments of silence before Mr. Kelly slaps his thigh and says, Ripper! Now we've all been introduced, how's about I get us a round of coldies from the bar?